Okay, thanks for being back after lunchtime. I know it's not always easy to come back from the lunch table. It's my great pleasure to introduce the moderator of the upcoming session, Matteo Pasquinelli, Professor Matteo Pasquinelli. It's my third introduction I give to you here in Karlsruhe, but the first way I can officially say you're a professor now for media theory at the Karlsruhe University for Arts and Design. Really appreciating your approach. You are one of the few thinkers I know personally who is master of the, let's say, thoughts by Norbert Wiener, but also by Deleuze, and at the same time understands the highly complex technological formation, which one might describe as machine learning, artificial intelligence, not only in a historical perspective, but very up-to-date view. So you are not, as a theoretician, but also a practitioner, you're not afraid to enter the highly complex mathematical domains of data government. For me, that, by the way, you have in common with Julian Oliver, this critical approach from a theory side, but not afraid to also engage with the concrete technology itself. So, welcome, Matteo Pasquinelli.
Thanks for the generous word. Yeah, I'm myself impressed by also the complexities of these topologies of potential spaces that already emerge in this symposium. I would refer indeed to what also Irrgang was mentioning yesterday. There's this incredible tension between infrastructures and fugitive studies. I would say that this also expanded today in this beautiful lecture by Nikos, sorry for the pronunciation of the name, Nikos. The beautiful lecture by Nikos Papastergiadis, and still we hear the echo of his talk here. I don't know how to frame it precisely, this topological complexities. Now we are probably going to present, to meet two case studies coming from specific region of the planet. But one of the things I would like maybe to mention is this element that we find also in ancient Greek philosophy. This is part of the genealogy of Greek thought, that it was like the electron, that is the name that was given in ancient Greece to money. And according to this German philosopher Zonretel, the electron, the abstraction of money, was also what gave a kind of initial impulse to development of thought as a form of abstraction. In the following two talks, we will concretely frame these problematics, how to develop sustainable economies for art, and how we indeed, or sometimes fight in local context, as cultural producer, as artists, as activists and theoreticians. And I'm very happy now to introduce Miklós Peternák, that will probably talk about more transitional objects, two big ones from Budapest, the C3 project and the Center for Culture, Intermedia Center for Culture, the intermediate department of the Hungarian University. I encountered this experience in the 90s, virtually, when indeed I was still living in Italy, and the C3 was one of the points of reference for new media culture in Europe, together with ZKM, together with the Next 5 Minutes Festival in Amsterdam, and other platforms from Berlin. And Miklós today will try to tell the history of these initiatives and how they unfolded more recently. Miklós, probably you're familiar with this space here. You've been many times here at ZKM IFK. And for who doesn't know him personally, I said Miklós Peternák is from Hungary, lives in Budapest, studied history and history of art. He was a member of the Béla Balázs studio in Budapest from 1981 until 1987, and the Indigo Group. Is the head of the intermediate department at the Hungarian University of Fine Art since its foundation, and director of C3, Center for Culture and Communication, since 1997. He has produced several films and videos during the 80s, published numerous articles and books on contemporary media art and history, and organized several exhibitions. Please, Miklós, join me on stage and welcome.
Thank you very much, Mato. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, thank you very much, Siegfried, Daniel, and Ali, for the invitation and for the organization. The topic of the talk is, in the abstract, it is about two institutions, the Intermedia Department of the Hungarian University of Fine Art, the C-Cube, Center for Culture and Communication, with a naive attempt to compare the university and NGO role based on my local experiences. Before we start, let me add two remarks or dilemmas to create the initial conditions. The most influential Hungarian artist in the second half of the 20th century, Miklós Erdély, published this page in the Hungarian Schmuck. The third paragraph reads, "Let me not even hear about you if you do not take the initiative." Later, in 1981, in one of his theses related to his lecture, Some Characteristics of Post-Neo-Avant-Garde Behavior, he declares, "One must refrain from any form of organization and institutionalization." We all know an initiative itself is not budget dependent, only the realization. So an initiative can lead to an establishment. But the institution also means dependence. Does art need institutions, or can institutions at all be considered as chances for potential spaces? Initiatives are mainly personal, institutions are more environmental. The second remark, in the picture, it is the Hungarian University of Fine Art Mayor building. I think it polite duty if one is a guest at a conference to look after the initiative of the organizers and insert at least one quotation related to the given context. I have located this important area of experience in the potential space between the individual and the environment, wrote Winnicott. These are our in-betweens now, between the initiative and the institution, and between the individual, whatever it means, and the environment in any sense. The key word is experience. In this context of experience, I have to add that in the Hungarian language, in this specific case, the Hungarian language in this specific case is richer than the English. We have two words for experiencia, therefore it is not possible to translate accurately. Another linguistic remark, the future in the past tense doesn't exist in the Hungarian language. This talk has 2 times 5 short chapters, not necessarily in this order and not necessarily readable. Let's start with the past of the intermedia from the initial action, which affected the process that led to a result, the institutionalization. From 1990 autumn, after a local revolt by the students of the university, the new intermedia department started its activity in a fundamentally new structure. We decided not to adopt the old-fashioned studio plus master plus student system, but was common in the Hungarian University of Fine Art and still is. It was also declared that none of the tools, devices, instruments, methods which are suitable for artistic purposes are prohibited. Further, that we support research activity in the disciplinary and cognitive artistic attitude. The intermediate curriculum was built around the core idea of the artistic use of the new media, the unity of theory and practice and perspective, which regards science, technology, and art holistically. The establishing or developing phase had happened between 1990 and 1993 in a form of a specific time lapse, including a so-called future collecting project. In 1993, when the department was officially started, we got the permission, the first diploma exhibition had happened as well. I can call the period between 1993 and 2002 a parallel course, Intermedia Art and Non-Art Art, after Tamás Szentjobbik, a significant professor at that time, or as another professor, János Sugár, wrote, the dirty digital Bauhaus. At the time, the computer was a new tool to confront and play with, and it's worth to remark that almost all students had a certain photographic background, but no computers. Now, almost all students have their own computers, but practically none of them saw a 35mm film, stripe, or the developing process of the silver gelatin photo paper in the darkroom. Besides teaching elementary technical tools, the everyday life was based on discussions and dialogues. It is quite easy because it is enough to put up simple questions. Why you are here and not somewhere else? What do you want to know? What do you know? What do you want? Otherwise, I feel it is a big mistake not to put up these questions. Before continuing the chronology, let's visit C-Cube also and see the two periodization parallel. I do not intend to explain, how C-Cube was started in 1996 after the success of the Butterfly Effect show, where we installed, at the first time in Hungary, internet access to public space, presented the most contemporary media art, together with media archaeological objects in large exhibition halls. C-Cube has several layers and focuses. I highlight here the most visible part, the exhibitions we organized during these years in cooperation with several people, artists, scholars, institutions. What does it mean to create an exhibition? Our answer and method was clear and simple. Pull out something for the past or from your personal analog data cloud, memory and experience, situate it in the middle and in the focal point of your attention, create or draw a conceptual grid, a knowledge map, maybe this is more popular term nowadays, or a reference list, and then try to replace the key concepts one after the other with existing or not yet existing contemporary artworks. There is always a need to produce new works too. That has to be added. This will be the basis of the exhibition, but remains without the possibility of any replacements. This will be the historical part or will be missing. This process needs some time, good stuff. You may call it research as well. In 2005, C-Cube had to move from the building where it was founded and worked for 9 years. This meant that we lost all public spaces, the gallery, the lab, the free public internet room, the library, the archive space, the lecture hall, the working environment as well. In a new location, there are offices and storages only. Also, Rödiger staff reduction has to be made, so continuation became highly dependent on local and international partnerships, collaborations. Of course, the internet stayed. The year 2002, after 12 years activity, the intermedia department moved to a real own location, a building which was originally in the 19th century was built for the atelier of the painter Ida Konek. And then during the socialist periods, it was probably a children's garden and was empty afterwards for more than a decade. It became part of the university campus, and since then it is the intermedia with approximately 60 students and approximately 915 teachers and employees. Now we can say something about the two forms of legal bodies, cautiously compare in general the characteristic of a university and an NGO. This may not be true internationally, but clearly describe the situation locally. We can say that the financial support of the university is frequently small but safe. The NGO budget is mostly unsafe, and all initiatives are budget sensitive. The minimal operational costs in a university are the infrastructure and the salaries to teachers, and you can act. In case of an NGO, if you obtain the operational cost, still you need the budget for a specific project, either for the actual participants or for the staff, if there are any. So you cannot act yet. The diversity of the shapes of smoke in Piranesi's graphics inside the fireplaces and the slow TV continuous fireplace broadcasting program can serve as an emblem for some further observations. From a historical perspective, events and happenings can be judged after certain time passed. They can consider as if it was a short story or can be related to history, at least as a list in the computer browser. In a university, you work with living people, bios. You can measure only the difference between the input and output. If the output is better, that is a result. There is a slight potentiality to influence the initial conditions, organize entrance exams, some possibilities to select whom to work with for 5 years. At an NGO, there is a high dependence on the constantly and randomly changing initial conditions to reach a definite output which had been written in the founding constitution. In other words, to fulfill the definite goals under various circumstances, this wizardry is the task. How does your storyboard look like? What is the shape of it? At the university, the storyboard frames are fixed, but all stories are open. At an NGO, you should always reinvent the storyboard to create the same story. Universities are slow, NGO can act and react swiftly. To make effective changes in a university, this sometimes takes a decade or more, which is generally, maybe sometimes unfortunately, equal to the total life cycle of an NGO. The exceptions does not override this. Maybe it is a pointless commonplace, especially in Germany, to refer to the university idea of Wilhelm von Humboldt. However, the essentials for the university retains libertas scholastica, autonomy, and Bildung. Should we consider this as a research lab? Now, back to the continuation of the intermediate short chronology. Between 2002 and 2012, it's kind of mapping the local, the new generation of students entered with new ideas and without any memories regarding the old regime, former socialist experience, and then a bit later, no experiences, how was the life before the computer games, before the internet, and soon, the newest arrivals, we have no memories before the Facebook. So between 2011 and 2013, new concept was developed. The Intermedia 2.0 was started. No media, it is a provisory title, and there are some milestones, all student works, which you see here. This is the 0 kilometer stone stolen by a student of us. And full costume. This needs maybe some explanation because it is the Hungarian national flag related to historical holidays, the 56th revolution, the 20th of August. In the bread, it is used normally in this shape, and the 1848 revolution symbol. A cordon bike. And a conceptual map with video projections by the students of János Sugar. Intermediate tour, you can visit in 3D or environment if you want. Cooperations are essential for the Intermedia C3 as well, locally and internationally. A recent example is the Imagit project together with the HFG. As C3 lost all public spaces and since 2000 doesn't get any permanent support, the only chance for almost any public activity lies mainly in this option, collaboration, cooperation. And here there are some examples of this story, also related to exhibitions, as it is now the main line. In an interview I made with Peter Weibel in Budapest 2013, he said, "Why do we need NGOs? Because people have the feeling as citizens they have to protect themselves, to protect the environment, animals, health, to protect human rights, because it is not done by the government. We have new foundations, new organizations, and we have to call them non-governmental organizations because the government acts now without our consent. We have to protest and to fight against it." End of quotation. Here the question arises. If one make a step back, ein Schritt zurück, as Wilhelm Flusser used to say, and focus on observing, archiving, museology issues, can it be considered as a form of fight or it is simply escaping? One can say that there are very diverse manners to fight. A gentle and productive solution is to care, to keep, to save somehow important values, for example, art, culture, and all what you feel important, despite of the fact that for certain authorities, this has no importance. Some years ago, I proposed to establish a media museum based on C3 collections, databases, and network to reshape, to rebrand the activity based on the time past and also thinking on the potential future. Till now, no real feedback in terms of funding, but we did not give it up. It is well known that art and culture are not in the main focus of the Hungarian actual government. However, there is still a weak and specific interest toward museums. For example, the old backpack of our Prime Minister was given to the National Museum. And if you carefully survey media archaeology, there are historical examples for such stunts. I do hope I was able to finish this presentation in time. Thank you for your attention. Maybe you think there will be questions?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, there are questions for sure. We have questions. At least I have some. Thanks. Are there any questions for Miklós about this overview of this years of activities? Raki, do you have some questions? No, my curiosity was about what you said yesterday. Indeed, governments come and go.
Yes.
And indeed, this is probably...
the question is whether we have the time to wait for this end. But in terms of Hungary, during these 27 years, none of the government was supportive for such type of art because simply they do not understand what is this digital era, what is contemporary art, what is media art, why it is necessary to support. They are in another layer. It has historical explanation, but this is not that conference where I can clearly explain, and it takes quite long time and needs some specific knowledge related to the history of the so-called Middle and Eastern Europe. So it's not surprising, but it's not easy to live with, but it is the fact, simply. As a natural phenomenon, we have to accept it.
No, I was shocked by the example of the backpack, but probably that's a clear symbol also of these new cultural policies across Europe, not just in Hungary, that probably they're trying also to introduce this idea of a new folk art against the elite. Can you maybe elaborate on that? And how you perceive this new also, form of populist
the
educational
backpack was
policies?
very popular in the internet. There were dozens or hundreds of jokes with it, but it is a fact. But it is not something which is very unique. They may store in the National Museum the pipe of a certain former prime minister, or the desk, the collection of objects as a kind of magic attitude towards the relics. It existed always. The main problem that my colleague, not really liberalist professor on sculpture in our university, told that maybe we have to start to play football, and in this way we can will be too in the game in terms of founding, because the art is really a little bit out of focus. I guess it is problematic because a lot of very interesting happenings are around. So Budapest is a very vivid place, not only in terms of ruined pubs, but in terms of art making. There is a kind of nostalgia how it was during the socialist regime, where a lot of illegal actions and activities had happened, flat exhibitions and so on. Now again there are flat exhibitions and active artists, which is good.
I have more. Quick, thanks, Miklós. Anya, please.
Yeah, I was wondering, because obviously there's a shrink, like at least in physical space, there seems to be like a little shrinking process. And how is it with the audiences? Because obviously you showed us also all these examples of how you deal with the situation. But I would also was wondering, yeah, obviously there will be some people who are interested, and do they come and do they grow, or is it rather also is the audience also shrinking, or like whom are you speaking with, so to say?
Well, it is normal in every country. There are diverse type of art making, and all has its own audience. So there is an audience for the so-called official art as well, and there is an audience for the, let's say, post-neo avant-garde after media art as well. So the question is, what is the knowledge among the people, or those who are inhabitants in Budapest, for example, that's 1.5 million, about art? So where they can get the information which is sometimes necessary to step in an exhibition space. So basically education and educational tools and books and reference book and the role of the media. Regarding this, we are not in a very good situation. It was much better at the turn of the 19th to the 20th century, where there were associations for visual pedagogy and teaching, and they published monthly magazines, and there were methods how to teach to draw the people. You may have it in Germany as well, which practically disappeared, and nothing came. And even such tools or such books which are still valid, let me name only László Moholy Nagy or George Kepes, were published in Hungarian. However, both were Hungarian-born with a 50-year delay, and not everything, and in 500 or 1,000 copy, and not known by the people. So the audience to to create the audience is a job, and it is not a job of one generation. It is a consequent Bildung as well.
We have a question here, please.
Thank you very much for that fantastic lecture. It shows by humor and big knowledge, like a Rybczynski film. The whole, yes, thank you. And I want to ask for your first picture you showed with the word Schmuck in red lettern.
Yeah, it was an English conceptual Fluxus magazine. It has several numbers, and the Schmuck, this Hungarian Schmuck was published in 1973. It was a collection of, at that time, prohibited art, which was schmucked through the border. And I guess it had 500 copies, and there were Czech and other type of schmuck. As now have the conceptuals is in fashion now, it has a certain value as well.
Yes. And what kind of value you want to show in that context?
I quoted one sentence from Miklós Erdély, which speaks about the initiative. And I quoted another sentence from him when he said that institutions are not necessary for an artist or for art making. And I intended to put in the table these two attitudes: what is an initiative and what is an institution and what is in between. This was the only reason, and because this whole went in parallel line like an Eisenstein film, I added a quotation from Winnicott when another in-between was created. So the two in-between was the essence of the lecture, and I was in between the two in-betweens. That was the idea.
More questions? Not one over there.
So thank you for the lecture. I would like to ask, how do you see the future? So we heard a lot about the past, but not much about the possibilities and also the responsibilities of these two institutions in Budapest after or under such political circumstances, because it seems that the political circumstances are not moving away.
Thank you, Olivia, for the question. No, I have to make a division, so I cannot keep it any longer parallel. There is an answer for C-Cube, and there is an answer for the university. For C-Cube, it's very simple. I simply do not know. Maybe we have to close or sell to someone this tons of gigabytes of informations, because I cannot see at the moment possible support. In the university, the answer is different because it is a state university, only university for fine art, and we have an university for applied art, for music, for dance, and for film and theater, and that four have got state sponsorship for a kind of renewal, for new building and so on. We not yet. So the next step is to finance the Hungarian University of Fine Art, because it is in the Andrássy Street, which is part of the World Heritage, and the historical building, which is a historical monument, was never restored since it was built in 1845. It is the only black hole in the whole Andrássy Street, which is full of his Gucci and so on. Even the Goethe Institute had to move from that area because it became so expensive. So they had to move because of the high rental fees. So in this street, there is a building which is a historical monument, and it is not renovated since its existence. it is not good for the state, I guess. So they will provide us some support, and I guess it will be a kind of sign if we renovate the environment, we renovate the infrastructure and also the mentality inside. This has to be happen together and very soon. And it can happen. The main problem with the universities in Hungary is related to autonomy. The autonomy is in real danger, not because there is a new law, it is because that we, as you in Germany since years, have the new system of chancellery. We have a chancellor and the apparatus of the chancellor, and all money is in the hand of the chancellor. They were sent, were distributed to all state-financed university to help the work of the university, but practically always that body is in power who guards the budget. So it is very simple. So it is a kind of attack against the university. They officially tell us that they serve the professional work and they assist this. Practically in everyday life, it does not function in this way. So this I also have to add to give you a very blurred picture of what's going on.
Any more questions? Probably we can wrap up here, I don't know, because yeah, one speaker is missing, so we anticipated part of the program in the afternoon, correct?
I add one remark. It's a pity that Peter Weibel is not here, because he might buy C-Cube for a StatCam collection.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.